Welcome back, survivalists. So I think there's a bit of a myth out there that prepping for emergencies is expensive. And I often get comments on my videos saying things like, I can't afford to prep, or it'd be nice if I was wealthy and I could afford to buy some of these items. And I couldn't disagree with this premise more. I think that some of the most effective tools and items to have and be prepared for emergency situations are typically some of the most affordable items as well. So today I'm going to run through 10 cheap survival items that could save your life in an emergency. So the first item on the list is going to be a Ferror Rod. So a Ferror Rod is a tool used to create fire. If you have a striker or even a knife with a 90-degree spine on it, you can use this to shower sparks on your tinder. And a Ferro Rod is a pretty common item in the survival community. Anybody who goes out camping will typically bring a Ferro Rod as a backup fire starter. And you actually often see these Ferro Rods in combination with other tools as well. So this is the Mora Survival. It has a Ferro Rod, a small one, built right into the actual sheath. You also have tools like this. This is by BlastMatch. It's a Ferro Rod with a spring on it, and you have a striker right here that you press down on, and it makes it very easy just to get a big shower of sparks and quickly start a fire using this. And it's all self-contained, and it's really pretty simple to use. Now personally though, I like to buy big, thick, heavy-duty Ferro Rods like this. This particular one is by Titan Survival. I'm a big fan of that company. That is also where I get my PARACORD bracelet from as well. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I like just having a thick Ferro Rod like this that I know is going to last. You often see like little thin ones that I feel like are gonna snap on me one day, or I feel like it's gonna come off from the handle. But you can get a Ferro Rod pretty cheaply, right? Anywhere from $5 to $10 to $15 for a small Ferro Rod like this, or some sort of gimmicky thing like this, or just a big heavy-duty Ferro Rod like this. Now you may be asking me, why do I prefer a Ferro Rod over a lighter or just a book of matches, right? Wouldn't it be a lot easier to start a fire with something like this? And you are correct. To start a fire with the Ferro Rod, you have to have a bit of knowledge, right? You have to be able to create tinder and create a little tinder bundle, and there's a bit of a skill to it. But I will say that a Ferro Rod, something like this, I could probably start 5,000 fires with, right? A Ferro Rod like this would literally last me an entire lifetime of camping, versus a book of matches like this that maybe I could start 20, 30 fires with it. You know, same thing with the little lighter. Now the best solution is to have this as a backup fire starter, right? Throw a lighter into your survival kit or your emergency kit, as well as a Ferro Rod. And when the opportunity presents itself, try to start your campfires with a Ferro Rod, just so you can start building that skill and kind of developing that knowledge and experience around starting a fire with a Ferro Rod. But a fire is a very important thing to have in a survival situation, whether it's a wilderness survival situation or even a urban survival situation. And having a good Ferro Rod with you could literally be the difference between life and death. Now, one little thing I do want to touch on with this is that a lot of Ferro Rods, they're very easy to lose, right? And this is such an important item that I like to attach bright fluorescent orange lanyards to my Ferro Rods like this. And that's why I like it when you see survival items in bright colors like this. There are some items that are so important you do not want to lose. Something like this, you could easily drop this on the ground and completely lose it. You never find it again because it blends right in with the ground. So if you do have a Ferro Rod, I like having some bright colored lanyards on it, or some kind of case for it as well. And I actually attach lanyards like this to most of my important stuff, right? Your compass, your keys, your knife, all these things that you do not want to lose. Add some fluorescent orange lanyards to those items. The next survival item is going to be a portable battery charger. So your cell phone should be considered a survival item as well. That can literally be the difference between life and death. Having a full charge on your phone, being able to call for rescue, call an emergency, have access to vital time-sensitive information like weather and tornado warnings and other information like that. You can have all of that with your phone, but only if it has a charge to it. And that's why in the last couple years, you know, a good battery charger has made its way into all of my survival kits and all of my emergency preps. This is really a pretty critical item. And you can literally buy a battery charger at the grocery store starting for $10 and up. Now, if you want to spend a little bit more money, $40, $50, you can get something a little bit heavier duty. So something like this could charge your phone, you know, maybe 2 full times right here. Something like this, you're able to get like 20 full charges on your cell phone. This also has a solar panel built into it. So for these longer duration emergency situations, like if riding out the aftermath after a major hurricane and maybe you don't have power, you can have sustainable renewable power for your phone with a heavy duty charger like this. This also has LED lights built into it as well, so it has kind of that dual purpose to it. But your phone is a very, very critical item in just about any survival situations. From just the knowledge you can gain, you know, if you need to know something about first aid or how to treat a broken limb or something like that, or just access to vital weather information, or just to call, you know, the police or call a ambulance or something, you want to have a full charge on your phone. And I would absolutely consider a battery charger a life-saving survival prep. And these things are incredibly affordable today. In just the last 5 years, they have come way down in price. Literally for $10 is, you know, where you can start seeing these battery chargers at. So the next cheap survival item is going to be a water filter. Now, in most survival situations, not all of them, but most of them, access to clean drinking water is going to be your #1 priority, right? You can only last 3 days without any water at all. And whether you're out in the wild or in an urban situation, or you're riding out a bad storm in your home, access to clean drinking water has to be one of your top priorities. And that's where these water filters really come in handy. And these things are incredibly affordable these days. So the LifeStraw is a very common one. You see this pretty often. You can get one of these for $10. Now, if you want to step up your game a little bit, you can also get something like this. This is made by Kaito, which is also a very reputable brand in the water filtration scene. And this is essentially like a LifeStraw, but inside a much more convenient container, right? This is essentially the same thing. It can probably filter about the same amount. But with this, you can go to a stream or a ditch or wherever, fill this up with water, and then you can bring that water with you, which is a pretty big deal. Now, another common filter that you see is the Sawyer Mini. This is very common amongst backpackers and campers. It's very, very compact. What I love about this can actually connect to any water bottle. You literally just screw it onto the water bottle like that, and you just drink the water straight out of it. So a lot of campers, they'll buy a fresh, you know, container, a liter of water or whatever, bring it with them. After they've drank all of it, then they'll fill that up with dirty water, screw this on, and you just suck through the straw, or you can even squeeze the water bottle and push the water out that way. So I will say that these two are much more convenient just because the water is more transportable, right? You can get some dirty water, bring it with you somewhere. There's a lot of hype around the LifeStraws, and like they're fine, they're great. The challenge is that you literally have to like get down on your belly and suck the water out of a ditch, which is not really the most convenient thing. There's no easy way to bring it with you. Now you could just bring any water bottle, I guess, fill it with dirty water and kind of stick this in there. You can kind of go that route as well, but it's just a little less convenient. Now another option that you can go with is, these are all under $20, right? I think this is like $10. The LifeStraw is like $10. You get something like this, the Survival Filter Pro Pump. And this is more of a long-term situation. And this has an actual hand crank on it, so you actually pump the dirty water out of the stream, goes through the filter, and then you can have a clean hose going into your containers for clean water. So if you have an entire family, let's say, that you're trying to build an emergency kit for, you can go with something like this. It's a little bit more expensive than these other options, but you can go with any of these. If you're on a budget, go with the Sawyer Mini or go with the LifeStraw. But water filtration is going to be one of your top priorities in most survival situations. Not all of them, but in most of those situations. It's definitely in the top 3 priorities in just about any survival situation. And you can easily check this off your list with one of these items. The next cheap survival item is going to be an emergency radio. If you've watched my videos before, I'm constantly harping about how important emergency radios are and how I think they should be one of the very first items that you buy for your home emergency kit, because they are that important. Like with your cell phone, access to information is going to be very, very helpful in many, many situations, especially in the aftermath after a disaster, an earthquake, a flood, a hurricane, and that's where these come in handy. If you have no power, you still have access to critical weather updates with an emergency radio. I'd say that it's also a bit of a morale boost, and you may not think that's a huge thing, but listening to some music or even just listening to the weather updates can really psychologically help out a lot. Just knowing that you're not completely isolated, you still do feel a little connected to the rest of the society. But these emergency radios have some other purposes as well. Almost all of them nowadays have an LED flashlight built into them. Almost all of them have solar panels built into them as well. And almost all of them double as a battery charger, right? You can charge your cell phone off of one of these emergency radios. So you could, place this outside during the day to let the batteries fully charge up, and now you have a light in the afternoon, or in the at nighttime you can use this and charge your cell phone, just so you have some sort of charge on it. Now this is not a very big solar panel here. It probably may not be the ideal situation to charge your phone off of that, but you could do it in an emergency situation. And there are a lot of brands out there, a lot of very reliable brands. Almost all of them have the solar panels. Almost all of them have the crank on there as well. Some of them have rechargeable batteries, as well as taking AA or AAA batteries as well, so you have multiple sources of power. And many of them, if you know there's a bad storm coming your way, you can charge these rechargeable powers with any kind of USB adapter. You can charge this from your car or from your wall outlet before the hurricane or tornado or storm hits your area. And these things usually range anywhere from $20 to about $40, maybe even $50 for a good emergency radio. And yeah, I definitely think that these things are pretty affordable for the value that they provide. And so if you are building a home survival kit, home emergency kit, I definitely think you need to have one of these emergency radios in that kit. And for $20, $30, man, I definitely think these things are absolutely worth the price, just for the fact that you have a solar power flashlight in there. You have a solar power battery charger for your cell phone in there as well. If you're really in a pinch, you could sit there and crank this up for 20 minutes to charge your cell phone with, right? Just having that ability is absolutely, could be a lifesaver in many situations. And definitely one of the first items that you should include in your home emergency kit. The next cheap survival item that you can buy is some emergency food. Now, typically emergency food like freeze-dried meals are not cheap. Usually they're like $7, $8 per meal if you buy them individually. You can buy the bigger containers and you get a little bit of a better price on that. If you're on a budget, I wouldn't go that route. Instead, I would go with something like this. This is by SOS Emergency Food Rations, and these probably taste like crap. They probably are not good tasting at all. I can almost guarantee that. But they are affordable. So for this, you get 9 of these bars. Each bar has 410 calories in there. Have a bunch of fats and proteins and carbohydrates in there, and it's more of a fuel for your body than an actual meal. And that's how I look at it. These are fuel for your body in an emergency situation. Now, in most situations, food is not going to be your top priority. Water, shelter, warmth is going to be all higher priorities than food. You can go up to 30 days without eating anything before you die. But food is going to be fuel, right? It's going to give you energy to keep going. If you have to build a shelter or you have to go hiking 20 miles before you get to the next campsite, you need fuel for that if you're going to be expending that much energy. And that's really where these come in handy. I don't really see these necessarily as meal replacements, even though they are, but I see them really more as fuel for your body. They're not going to taste good, but they give you all those calories and nutrients, carbs, fats, and proteins that your body needs to keep performing. And this one here is by SOS Rations. There's a bunch of other brands out there that make like little tablets or little cubes. that taste like garbage, but they give you the fuel and energy that your body needs. And these things are fairly affordable, $20 or so. You can buy some of these emergency food rations. Now, before we get to the final 5, if you guys are getting any sort of value out of this video, any of my other videos, and you want to help support me in creating this content, I do now offer merch, right? So links down below, you can get a survival know-how t-shirt, get a survival know-how water bottle, and even survival know-how stickers, right? By buying this kind of merch, it helps me keep making videos like this. Another way you can support the channel is just by the affiliate links down below. I'll have recommendations to all the items that I mentioned in today's video. Those are Amazon affiliate links. And by using those links, you're helping support this channel, helping me keep creating more content just like this one. So the next cheap survival item that could save your life is going to be solar-powered lights. So one thing that really interests me is how much this space has really evolved in the last 10 years. If I would make a list of essential survival items 10 years ago, it would be very different than it is today. Now today we have solar panels have gone way down in price, LED lights have gone way down in price. So a lot of people are combining these two items, and you can get some very affordable, renewable, rechargeable solar-powered lights that I think are an essential item for emergency situations. There's a bunch of different companies in this space. LuminAID is one that I'm a big fan of. They have these very lightweight solar chargers with LED lights in there, and then an inflatable body. And the body really just helps diffuse that light and scatter it, you know, in all directions. So this is more like a lantern. And these things are super lightweight. I bring this with me camping every time I go hammock camping. I'll hang this up from my ridge line, and this is all the light that I really need. And this is much more convenient than having a directional light for me when I'm out camping. There's a couple other players in this space as well. Hybridlight is another company I'm a big fan of, and they have just, you know, some pretty standard solar powered lights. It's something like this. It can take, I believe, AAA lights, AAA batteries, and then also has these solar chargers for a rechargeable battery in there as well. So in an emergency situation, you need light right now. You can replace the AAA batteries, but you can also leave this outdoors all day long to recharge that renewable battery, chargeable battery, and at nighttime you can have access to that light. They've also got a bunch of other really creative designs like this one here. That this can actually plug into a wall outlet. So again, you know that there's an emergency coming. You can charge this up ahead of time, or you can just leave this in your wall outlet at all times. They have a bank of LED lights here as well as a directional light. And something like this in the LuminAID, they double as battery chargers. So you can charge your cell phone off of this, and you can charge your cell phone off of this. Now again, these are very small solar panels on both of these items. If you left this outdoors all day long in direct sunlight, it may take the entire day to fully charge a cell phone. But in an emergency situation, that is better than nothing. That is still incredibly useful, and that could literally be the difference between life and death, having a full charge on your cell phone. And I love that something like this by Hybridlight has that dual purpose, right? It can be a solar charger, it can be a battery charger, and it has, you know, a renewable source of light for emergency situations. And something like the LED rechargeable solar lantern by LuminAID, these things are about $20. Some of the flashlights are usually about $20 now. There's a bunch of other companies making knockoffs that you can usually get a little bit cheaper. Something like this a little bit more expensive. I think this is about $40. But the prices of all these items have come way down in recent years. And if you are slowly adding to your emergency kit or your survival kit, I definitely am a big fan of this LuminAID solar powered rechargeable lantern that they make. So the next cheap survival item is going to be some sort of fire starter. So I'm not talking about a Ferror Rod or matches or lighters or anything, but an actual material that is usually saturated in some kind of flammable oil that if you just throw a spark on it, it helps you start a fire. Many of these materials will burn for several minutes, and it makes life so much easier starting a fire. And like the truth is, if you took the average person, gave them a book of matches and said, go out to the woods and start a campfire, a lot of them wouldn't be able to do it. A lot of people just don't really have that experience or the knowledge of how to start really small, start with some tinder and then build up to some kindling and then build up to larger and larger sticks. And that's really where these fire starters come in handy though. It makes it far, far easier because you have that consistent flame for several minutes there. There's a lot of different designs out there. You have these things by Dave Canterbury in the Pathfinder School of Survival. He wrote Bushcraft 101, Bushcraft 102, and a bunch of other good survival books. And these ones here are kind of these wafers that are, you kind of break them up and you can easily just throw a spark on this and it will start a fire for you. We also have something like this by Instafire, and this is more of a granular powder that you pour out. You throw a spark on there and it'll burn for a little while. What's nice about this is you can use a little bit or you can use a lot. You have these Bigfoot fire plugs that give these little plugs that are, again, like cotton, and they're soaked in some kind of resin. And you gotta like snap these open and expose the individual fibers, and then you can throw a spark on that. And then you have something like this from Fire Dragon, and these are more of gels that you have that you can kind of squeeze out, and you again just start them up with a lighter or matches or something, and that will burn for several minutes. There's another one called, I think, Fire Snot, which is kind of like in a toothpaste roll, and you can put it out on, smear this gel on some kind of wood, and it'll burn for a long time. But these things make life so much easier. Even myself, if I'm trying to start a fire with just a Ferro Rod, the conditions have to be just right. You know, if everything is wet out there, even trying to start a fire with a Ferro Rod, it could take me a little bit of time to do it. It's not always ideal. So having these fire starters makes life so much easier. I almost always bring these when I go camping, just for that convenience, you know. And I'm a bit of a connoisseur when it comes to fire starters. I like experimenting. You can also make your own. There's a bunch of really easy formulas to make them, from like egg carton crates and dryer lint, right? You could make your own, and a little bit of wax. You can make your own fire starter out of that. That'll burn for several minutes and start very easily. But these things are all very affordable. $10, $20, you can buy an entire package of these fire starters that would last you for years. And fire is one of those items that is very important absolutely in wilderness survival situations, pretty important in a lot of urban survival situations as well. And you really have no excuse not to go out and spend $10 and buy some fire starters for your emergency kits. The next cheap survival item is going to be a MYLAR blanket. You can literally buy MYLAR blankets for like $3 and up on Amazon. They are incredibly affordable. You can buy a blanket, or this one here is an emergency bag, like a sleeping bag. You can buy tents with them. You spend a little bit more money and get something like this. Is my emergency zone. And this is a dual layer blanket. So they have the MYLAR blanket, then they have another layer just to make it a little bit more rugged and durable. Because the MYLAR blankets are often very, very thin, and you can like puncture them and tear holes in them. So I do like the idea of making them a little bit more durable and rugged. And MYLAR is just really good at reflecting your body's heat back at you. In many emergency situations, survival situations, your priority shouldn't necessarily be to create a source of heat, right? In a lot of situations, your body is producing enough heat already, and your goal is not to produce more heat, but to contain your own body's heat. That's why shelter building is often, you know, more important than building a fire, because it's just about containing your own heat, and that's really where these MYLAR blankets come in. They are very good at you containing your own heat. Even though they are so thin, they just reflect that heat back at you. And these things, I think, are definitely a must-have in many survival kits, or when you're going out camping. Super lightweight, super compact, and super, super cheap, most importantly, and they really could be the difference between life and death in a lot of situations. The next survival item is going to be a propane burner. Now this is really for urban survival, right? This could go in your home emergency kit, your car emergency kit, or your office emergency kit. But a simple propane burner like this could be incredibly valuable in a lot of disaster situations. And this burner right here will run you about $40 to get the stand and the base up here as well. But then you can just buy more of these propane fuel containers after that, which are much, much more affordable. And a burner like this can run at full blast for about 2.5 hours. So even if you dial that back a little bit, you can get a lot longer life out of something like this. And since I said before that water is your top priority in many situations, if you just have a metal container, you can now boil water. And so this is going to be a tool that's going to give you access to clean drinking water. You can cook food with this. You can create heat with this as well. So all of those important survival items, you know, food, water, heat, this is a tool that can give you all of those. And so this is really great for a short-term urban survival situation. And I think $40 is pretty affordable. It's really gonna be a one-time purchase, and then you just have to buy more of these fuel containers, which are even less than that. And I definitely think that if you're building out a emergency kit for your home or office or vehicle, this is definitely a great item to add to that kit. If for nothing else, just for the ability to purify water by boiling it. That alone makes this thing absolutely worth it. The next survival item is going to be PARACORD. So PARACORD is very common in the prepping and wilderness niche, but it's rightfully so. This thing is very valuable in a lot of situations. And this is one of those general purpose tools that you're gonna find a use case for it. You know, you go out camping or you're in an emergency situation, you're gonna find a use case for this. There's just so many situations where you have two items that you need to attach to each other somehow. And that's where PARACORD comes in handy. So if you're building a shelter, you just need to attach two sticks to it. You need to attach your tarp or your MYLAR blanket to a tree branch. You can use some PARACORD. There's some first aid items like creating splints and casts that you can use PARACORD for as well. There's just a lot of these different situations where this is going to come in handy. Now you can buy just a hank of PARACORD for maybe $10 on Amazon. They are very, very affordable. If you have a little bit more money, you can also buy something like this. This is Survival Cord by Titan Survival. They're the same people who make my bracelet as well as my favorite Ferror Rod right here. And this is what I love about this. You know, a typical paracord has these inner strands. What they've done is replace one of those inner strands with a metal wire that you can use for snaring, right? If you want to make a snare for squirrels or something. They have a wire, a jute cord that's used for creating, starting a fire. It's kind of has some resin into it, so you have a fire starter built into it. And you also have a monofilament fishing line here as well. So if you had fishing hooks or create a fishing hook, you can use this to create a fishing trap to get more food. And I love that. I think this is the best paracord on the market. This is why I have this in my survival bracelet. So in this bracelet right here, I have a fire starter, and I have a fishing line and a snare line, as well as a bunch of paracord built right into it. So if you have a little bit more money, definitely check out some of the survival cord. If you're building a lanyard for, you know, one of your items or a bracelet, this is definitely the way to go. Now, before I was talking about how there are some items that you really don't want to lose, and you want them to be bright orange or some kind of bright color. So if you drop this in the woods, you're not gonna lose it. And I use paracord in order to do that with a lot of my items. So I think there's a really strong argument to be made that you may want to get some bright colored paracord as well, right? If you're only going to buy one hank of paracord, out of these two, I would go with the bright colored one just because of all the other purposes. You can add that paracord to all your critical and important gear as well. And a lot of survival situations, you want to be found, right? You don't necessarily want to be concealed and hiding out. There's some situations maybe that's true, but in most of them, you're lost in the woods, you want to get rescued somehow. And so having some bright paracord is not a bad thing, right? You can use this to help signal for help in a lot of different ways as well. But I think there's a really strong argument to be made that if you're gonna buy some paracord, and you're only gonna have one hank of paracord, buy some bright colored paracord just for all the other purposes that you can use it for to help you locate all your critical life-saving tools. And I will have links to my recommendations for gear in all these different categories down in the description below. If you guys want to know what the 15 items are that the Red Cross wants you to stockpile in your home, you can check out my video right here breaking those down for you. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more survival and prepping videos, and I'll see you over in the next video.